Thank you, everyone. It's probably been an interesting experience the last couple of days, right? We're at a communications industry conference, and we're talking about community and caring and love, right? You're probably some of you are going to go home and say, you know, I went to Connections and a lovin' broke out, right? It's really quite interesting. But we actually think that's the critical dialogue for all of us to have, right? Tom Williams opened up and he used the phrase, there's a war going on out there. And you know, he's right? I talked to some customers even yesterday, and they were talking about some of their competitors who have a little bit of fiber here and there, and they're out there and they're saying, hey, we've got fiber too, right? And the interesting thing about a war is sometimes competitors resort to dirty tricks, right? And as Michael pointed out, it's not like the average subscriber understands the difference in the technology. And you can spend a lot of time and a lot of money trying to educate the subscriber who really doesn't want to understand what a symmetrical service is, right? And why it's better. In the war, we think your most powerful tool is your brand. A strong brand is not some interesting little thing on the side. It's creative, it's interesting, it's catchy. It's actually something you can use to create a moat around your subscribers and around your communities that no one can come in and say, I got a little bit less expensive offering, come with me and steal your subscribers. So we don't want to just ask you to take our word for it. So we spent a lot of time, we looked across a lot of the leading brand studies that have been done over the last 10 years. And we took away 3 things that are really fundamental to how a brand can change your business and create that moat. So the first one is, what does a strong brand do? It generates great word of mouth. So you heard Caitlin yesterday, right? And she talked about how, you know, they're actually working with interested potential subscribers, and they're throwing pizza parties, and everyone's excited, and they're creating influencers who are going out on social media. You know, what effectively they're doing is, as they expand, they're creating a bow wave, right, that hits that community even before they're there. And it creates an amazing situation where they go in and those subscribers are throwing parties to celebrate their arrival. It's incredible, right? And it's important because when you look at the surveys and they ask consumers about how they make buying decisions, they find that on average, people are 91% more likely to buy a product or service when it's recommended strongly by their friends and family. Think about it, right? You see an advertisement and it looks interesting. Your friend calls you up and says, wow, this is amazing, right? I can't believe how much better my experience is now that I have this great app and I can see what my kids are doing, and if there's a problem, I know how to fix it and I can run a speed test. That is an incredibly powerful weapon. It also reduces price sensitivity, right? So Michael talked about, you know, the $30, $40 Bluetooth earpiece that you can get and works just fine with your phone. But what are 3/4 of teenagers in our country doing? They're spending $200, $300 because they want the Apple AirPod. And what's interesting is you look across different product segments and different brands, and you see the same thing. Because you may say, oh, that's Apple, right? You know, we're never going to be Apple. Who's going to be Apple? But when you look across all segments, consumers on average will pay 38% more when the product or service is from a brand that they value. 38%. So someone comes in and they're saying, oh, we'll give you 20% off, 20% less, et cetera. You can actually reduce price sensitivity when the consumer values your brand. And the last one's really interesting. Increases in employee engagement, right? You may say, well, the brand is really about the customer. It's our promise to the customer, what we're going to do for them. But what's really interesting is people also want to work for an organization that they can be proud of, a great brand, a great mission. That's what drives employee engagement, a sense of purpose. And again, companies with high engagement and great brands, on average, are 21% more profitable than their peers. 21%. And it makes sense, right? Because an engaged employee who's actually proud of what they're doing, they're going to go the extra mile. They're going to spend the extra time. They're going to make the effort to do their jobs. Why? Because they actually believe in what they're doing. So I'd love to share an example of an organization that accomplished great things, and their brand was a huge part of driving that. And I'm not going to give you another dissertation on Apple or Tesla or some big company like that. Everyone buckle up. I'm going to share the brand story of Liquid Death. I'm serious. I didn't make this up. It's actually real. Right? Here it is. I'd like to be in those branding meetings. Liquid Death. Right? I'd like to know what names they rejected. And seriously, this isn't a prelude to another Jerry video or a Jerry bomb. I'm actually really serious about this. So what's interesting is Liquid Death is not some edgy energy drink that's trying to, unseat, Gatorade and things like that. They're also not a microbrew, right? You might think, oh, that's that cool microbrew. They're going after bikers or something like that, right? Drink this and Liquid Death will help you on your next bike ride, right? Seriously, this is what they did. And what's interesting is they actually compete in what is truly the oldest consumer category in the world. Water. Liquid Death, water. Okay, hang with me. So it was interesting. Their founder was a big fan of rock concerts, and he'd go to a lot of concerts, and sometimes he'd get backstage, and he noticed something interesting. The artists were taking perfectly good bottles of water, and they were pouring it into empty cans. Why? Well, because plastic's not cool, right? It's not great for the environment. And he had a genius idea, right? What if I took water and I put it in a can and I built an amazing brand for this segment? And he's built a company that in 3 years has grown to $133 million in revenue, right? 133. In their last round of funding, their valuation was over $700 million. A can and water, right? Not bad. I wish I had that idea. Anyway, what was really interesting, though, is how he built the brand, right? So like a lot of great entrepreneurs, he did an experiment, right? He actually went out and said, look, I'm going to spend that's his experiment. You start to see they're pretty good marketers, right? So they did this experiment. He created a campaign with $1,500 from his own pocket. And then he went and spent $3,000 on targeted Facebook advertising. $3,000. And he put it out there. And after 3 months, they had more followers on Facebook than Aquafina. And millions of views. Millions and millions of views. Now, this is where it gets really interesting. So they didn't just build the brand to say death to thirst. Actually, it was death to plastic, right? And they backed it up. They actually put 10% of their profits into plastic cleanup. So what were they doing? They were tying their brand to their mission, right? And when I meet with many of you and your teams, you guys have incredibly meaningful and ambitious mission statements, right? And so that's the key question, right? Is my brand actually speaking to my mission? The higher calling of what I'm looking to do, which is something that the big giants, quite frankly, don't care about. So I'd like to share an example of a brand in our industry, which is another great brand, Paul Bunyan. Gary, I'm sorry to put you next to Liquid Death. I promise I won't do it again. So let's talk about Paul Bunyan. So Gary was here yesterday, and he was up on the main stage, and he was talking about his organization's journey, right? And he shared that they were a pioneer of fiber, right? 2004, everything forward was a fiber build. And then they went and they launched their GigaZone brand campaign, right? And he shared the story about the great gaming conference, and they're now getting thousands of people showing up. And it's really phenomenal. In fact, actually, it's one of the reasons why I joined Calix, seriously. So when I was thinking about joining Calix, obviously I was impressed with Michael and Carl and the leadership team and the strategy and the mission. It was really impressive. But being a marketer, I went to Calix.com and I went and watched every single customer video, right? Because I wanted to see what it felt like when when Calix is working with their customers. I was at IBM, another big giant, and we had a lot of customers who engaged with us, and it was the SVP of some big company who was just excited to get their name out there, right? Very clinical. When I watched the video of their first gaming conference from 2015, I was struck. I was like, wow, this is amazing. Look what these people are doing with the technology, right? And that was such a great way for them to create an identity around their technology advantage, right? And it was a big, big, big thrust of their marketing campaign moving forward. But then you fast forward to today. And it's interesting because, Gary still has a technology advantage, right? He's still the technology leader. And he's not going to give that up. It would be crazy, right? You got an advantage. It's really clear. You've built a brand. Run with it. So here's some really good examples of recent advertising campaigns and brand campaigns that they've been developing, and we've helped them with them. If you look at the top one, it certainly has a technology focus, right? So that's our Wi-Fi 6E GigaSpire, and it's fantastic for gamers. Why? You have a Revenue Edge environment at home, you plug it in, you have a dedicated 6 gigahertz channel for those gaming devices that you're spending thousands and thousands of dollars on. But what's interesting in the ad is it's not about the technology, it's about the gamer and the experience that they're creating, and you see the person and they're smiling. And I love it when customers put GigaSpires in their ads, right? Thank you. Really great. But what I really love is when you see the outcome of the technology. But there's something fundamental in the campaign at the bottom, and this is new for Paul Bunyan. When you look at this campaign, what's it about? We invest in you. We invest in the community, right? They've invested a lot of energy in things like the 218 relocate program. I mean, think about it. Bemidji, number 8 in PC Magazine's cities to relocate to. In all of North America, thousands of communities, right? That's core to who they are. Okay, let's start actually making that part of the brand promise that we're bringing to our customers. Let's make sure they understand what we're doing. And it doesn't just stop with things like 218 relocate. Look at this one, the ultimate experience, right? And when you look behind it, what's there? Home network security, parental controls, connected cameras, all the things that they're doing because they care. But the most stark thing about these ads is what I said before. When you look at them, what's there? People, right? It's not a picture of a fiber splice with the, things coming out and all the light and all of that. It's the people. And it's authentic, right? So Gary loves to call Michael all the time and talk about telehealth and aging in place, and we really got to do this for the community, right? The best part about this is someone shows up, they've rolled XGS PON, they're also offering 10 gig, but you know what? This is not replicatable. You can't go out and hire 30 door knockers to go across town and say, we're 25% less and we care, right? And that's who we are. And we all have this opportunity. Like I said, I know what your missions are. I meet with you and your teams. I go out and I am impressed. So just like Liquid Death, so you can all be like Liquid Death, right? Just like them, think about how you tie your brand to the higher purpose of what you're doing and really make sure that everyone understands that you actually care about them. But there's a second element to this, is you have to align your entire organization to that brand mission, right? Think about how you measure your teams who work with your customers, right? Do you have a call center where their focus is get on and off as fast as possible? Do you have a field tech team who's thinking, yeah, I got to get out, in and out fast and hook up that service? Are they incented? Are they focused on staying on as long as I can to make sure that that customer with an issue is satisfied? Or that new subscriber actually really understands all the services and why we're doing it. Someone asked me, God, these people with high NPS scores, how are they doing it? And my answer is, it's not what they're doing, it's how they're doing it. You can take something like Protect IQ and say, yeah, we're going to put it in our top tier. And we're going to put it on the list of features. Home network security. Or you can go out to the community and say, look, we're doing this because we're solving a problem. And we care. And we're different. But that kind of alignment takes work. So I'm going to close with an example of a brand that built a great company by doing just that. In this case, it's a brand you've probably heard of, Zappos, right? So Zappos kind of revolutionized the whole retail industry. They were the first ones to go out and say, you can return something in a year, 365 days. And the norm was 30 days. They also said, by the way, we'll pay for the shipping both ways, right? Because they basically said, let's look at our business model, right? We're a supply chain with an e-commerce site and a call center. We don't make anything, right? They don't make shoes. They don't actually create the product, but they can create the experience. So their mission was, from top to bottom, provide the best customer service. And I'm going to share a little story here that I think speaks to what that means, right? So they have a call center. Most call centers you look at, call time, first call resolution, those sorts of things. So a few years ago, a customer called in, wanted to return her shoes. It was past 365 days. And of course, being the organization they are, like, look, we're still going to take care of you. But we have to go through a different process, and it takes a few weeks, and we have to cut a check. And the customer said, I don't really want to wait a few weeks, right? And so the call rep said, okay, hold on a second. How about I help you shop and find something that's a replacement, because we can just ship that to you, right? Don't have to go through accounting and process and all of that. And they looked at shoes and they shopped, and it was really fantastic, and they talked about life and their family. And at the end of that call, they had a happy customer. That call took 10 hours. 10 hours. You can imagine that when they looked at their month-end call center metrics, she wasn't at the top of the list, right? I think actually for the year, right? But they not only had a happy customer, that rep actually earned a Facebook friend for life. And they got an advocate who went online and said, oh my God, you're not going to believe this. And they went and they told their whole family. Right? So I'm not telling you to go out and cut your marketing budgets. But if you do that, you got to spend a lot less on marketing. And you don't have to actually spend time trying to say, like, let me explain to you what a symmetrical service is. I know you don't want to know about it, right? You provide great service. And you say, well, how do they do that? Well, this is how they do it, right? Look at how they measure their service reps. This looks like something that's a list from an inside sales team. And you know it is, because they recognize that every single one of their employees has to sell their brand promise every single time they work with a customer. That's how you create great brands.